Welcome to the current Photorec TV Studios. So I was inspired by a fellow YouTuber, Chris Winter's recent office tour. If I had to sum up his office in one word, it would be clean with a capital C. It's amazingly neat and sharp looking, Chris. I'm impressed. I thought I'd do this video to add some nice balance to your very organized, very clean office, because not so much here. So you've all seen this in every video that I've done inside this space in the last, coming up on 2 years now. But if we start to pull back a little bit, you get a sense of the space, and I'm going to take you on a complete tour of all of the disaster that this office is. So first, I had this backdrop made by a local carpenter and friend. It's some kind of hemlock, or not some kind of hemlock, it is hemlock. Cost me about 500 bucks, and I think it was well worth it. I really like the kind of rustic look to it, and it's good. Sitting up on top of it is just a cheap bare bulb that's acting as our rim light. And I don't know if you can see right now, but we also have a GoPro running for a little B-roll footage in this studio tour. The desk I've talked about before. I have a separate video. I'll link that down below. We'll put links to all the different products that we talk about or I really kind of mention in this that I like or dislike. But I love this desk still. It's a great size, and the ability to move it up and down is really nice with the press of a button here. So if you're interested in that, you can go watch that video, but it is the uplift desk and it works really well. Over on the edge of it, I've got this older Asus monitor that I don't recommend, but when I need more space when I'm using the MacBook, it's nice to be able to plug it in and have my mail there while I'm still editing over here or something like that. Let's take a look now at the other side of the office. Probably the next piece of gear that we want to spend a little time talking about is my lighting setup. This is our main light source in here. A couple years ago I did a review or a video that showed what I used for cheap video lights. I'm using that same basic idea. We got 4 giant CF bulbs in there, and I don't love it. I love the light. We've upgraded our modifier to this nice Profoto reflective dish with a diffuser here. That's all great, but it's really kind of shaky in there. I don't like to move it a whole lot, and the bulbs actually don't even fit that well, so I had to use extenders. I'll show you what I'd like to upgrade to if it provides enough light. I haven't finished testing yet in the near future. But from there, we're going to drop down and talk about this first little messy shelf. That's kind of some audio bits and some hard drives as well. So the first piece of gear I want to talk about on here is this Tascam. This is the DR60 Mark II. We use this for all of our live show mixing, and I've been really happy with its quality. If those of you who have been long-time live show watchers know that we suffered for some audio problems for quite a while. Once we moved to this, that took care of most of those issues, at least the ones that happen in here when we're Skyping somebody in. That's a different story. Attached to that right now, actually, it isn't, but it is during the live show, are these Sennheiser mics, and I have to thank Tony Northrup for saying, go ahead and get them, because for a long time I was trying to be cheap and using other solutions, and again, you know, just paying that noob tax when you're trying to make cheaper gear work in a professional environment, you often end up losing time or having frustrating problems. And once we've moved to those Sennheisers, we've been very, very happy with the quality and the consistency from them. So those are great. I bought them used from a friend. A lot of gear you should look at buying used, because there's a lot of good gear out there that is at nice prices. But great, this Tascam. It can run off 4 AA batteries, but I actually have it powered from a USB port on a Teotronics lamp that I put on my gift guide quite a while ago. I've actually found that to be the cleanest USB power that doesn't introduce any kind of fuzzy noise. When I plug it into some other USB ports, I do get a little bit of fuzzy noise. We got a little basket back there with a bunch of spare mice sitting in them. I've got my spare travel drive here. This is a 1 terabyte drive. It's the shockproof. I really like this. It's fast enough for video editing with USB 3.0, and it was quite cheap and affordable. We've got some extra battery bits on top, and CF cards, and a box of batteries. If a battery is in here, it means it's all charged. So even though it looks really disorganized, there is some organization to this. I picked this up once. In the field, this Saramonic little device seems to do just as good a job as the Tascam, and it's much smaller. I've only used it a couple of times. Levels seem a little bit lower. You really have to crank them up, but otherwise I've been pretty happy with the ability to mix in the field, 2 separate mics right into the GH4, which is what I've been primarily filming with for most of my video work lately. This little box here is filled with anything that might be screwed into the bottom of a camera. So I got an L bracket here for Arca Swiss style compatible plates. I've got a spider holster thing. I don't know exactly what you call this. I really do like the spider holsters for long-term wearing. They are most comfortable. And of course I have the tools that allow me to screw them in and out when I need to, including quarters. And if I want to mount a GoPro to a bike, I've got that too. I also have a nice wireless router on here. Again, for doing the live show, we try to be wired as much as possible, but there are some times where we have another extra machine, so having something that is going to work reliably is really helpful there. Down below that, I've got my 6 terabyte Lacy hard drive that is my working drive, and I'll show you what that's connected to in a minute via Thunderbolt. I've been very happy with this drive. It's worked very well and given me a lot of good space over the years. I've got some older drives that hold things in the past, and they have names, and I have that all written down to remember what year everything is. A box of pens and a ball of rubber bands. Rubber bands are super useful to have around, and I use them often. And we've got a new battery charger here that is the IntelliCharger i4. I think I'm happy with it. I like that it gives me some indication of how much the batteries are charged, but it's fairly portable as well. And then down below that, we have a box of spare charging cables for things like charging the GoPro, charging Canon batteries, and a few other odds and ends in there. And then below that, more bits of power that are floating around, along with the ability as a little power strip for me to quickly plug in any different batteries that need charging. So I think that covers this table fairly well, and we can now move on to the computer that this is all attached to. So right about now you might be thinking, well, that was kind of messy, but it wasn't too bad. You said you had some organization there. I'm not going to hold anything back. Just hang on. We're going to get to the really messy stuff in a minute that has some organization still to it, I try to claim. But let's now move to this. This is a late 2015 iMac, the 27-inch Retina 5K. It's got an i7, 4 gigahertz. I've got 32 gigabytes of RAM in it, and it is now where most of the editing happens. Prior to that, I did most of my editing. Well, I picked this up in early December, and it is now also the machine that Riley sits at and does the switching for the live show. And it's been working very well for us, and it is certainly faster than my late 2013, actually no, I think it's early 2013 MacBook that was on the table with me. That's where I do most of my editing prior, and it is where I still do most of my editing when I do the travel vlogs. So it works. It can even edit 4K just fine. It's got, I believe, 16 gigabytes of RAM in there and a decent graphics card, which really can help. But it is not as nice as sitting in front of this beauty. Now, one of the things is, you know, a lot of people have those nice wired keyboards and mice, or wireless, I should say. I went wired because it always works. I never have to think about finding batteries. I never have any little blips that I get when I use wireless at times. And so even though it's not as pretty, I really appreciate the fact that it just always works for me. Also sitting on this table is the Ultra Studio mini recorder from Blackmagic. This is what brings in the feed from the camera, either the GH4 or the Sony, into the Wirecast program that we use for the live show, and that does HDMI via Thunderbolt cable. Also sitting on here are some various other cords, like an AC power adapter for the Sony. We also have one that's down at my feet for the GH4, so it's really nice to be able to plug those directly into the wall and not worry about battery at all. And then, you know, I should sit this out someplace nice and neat because it's so beautiful. But this is an old Rolleiflex that is quite beautiful and in good shape that would make for a nice decoration somewhere. But right now it's just kind of sitting behind the computer as I figure out what's the best thing to do with it. And there's a lot of cords that run from the back of this computer down to the hard drive. We've got multiple USB, we've got Ethernet, Lightning, pretty much all of the ports are full, I think. 4 USB, 1 Thunderbolt, and an Ethernet is back there as well. And then I've got a couple other cords laying on the counter. And then way over in the corner, just got one of these little charging bits. This is the RAV Power. Lets me charge up to 4 devices at a time. And I've got the iPad mini plugged into it right now. And I think that's the only thing. So it's not pretty, but it gives me everything I need at any moment. All right, so we're starting to get to the really good messy stuff. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to the Benro. This is, I don't remember the exact tripod name. This is the S4 head, but it's their video tripod, and it is primarily what we use here in the office and also take out on the road at times. Been very happy with this. Build quality is great, and it's holding up very nicely. I've also got right here a Movo slider. And they sent this along. I haven't done a full review of it yet, but I've been pretty happy with it. The build quality is good, and it allows me to get some kind of those nicer dynamic shots. I've currently got a tripod plate for it to go on the video head right now, but of course you can sit it on a table and adjust the feet individually. So that's very nice. Maybe at some point I'll do a full review. I have that up until recently what has been my very favorite tripod, travel tripod, and it's a little Me Photo. It's missing its head right now. I'll show you where that is in a second. But it packs down so nice and small. But I've upgraded to the Me Photo Road Trip, which is a little bit bigger, the carbon fiber, so it gives me a little bit more height without a whole lot more weight gain, and I do like that. I've got this corner back here that, is kind of my tripod corner. One of the things sitting in it is another thing I've been sent that I've never talked about. It is the MagoPod, and it's one of those things where you kind of like do this crane, and there's a belt you can put on to get those higher angles. I've never used it. It feels fairly cheaply made, but it also, I think, would get the job done if you want. This is all plasticky here, so it's just been sitting here, and it is what it is. This is the first serious tripod I ever bought, and I actually bought it to put a spotting scope on before I was really into photography. This is the Bogan. It's the 3011 heavy-duty aluminum legs. I bought this in 1997. In Texas, I remember, because I had a cheap tripod that I was on a road trip with, and it was not working for me, and I was like, screw it, let's go spend the big bucks. And this pistol grip head, which is pretty handy, but it's the Manfrotto plates, and I've mostly moved away from using those plates now, so this does not get a whole lot of use, and I'm happy to sell it if somebody wants to pay for shipping. What else is down in this corner? I've got a Think Tank lens exchanger bag. This is great for shooting weddings or events. It basically holds 3 lenses, and there's another pouch here for other things, and I use this often. It makes it very easy to switch lenses while you're on the go, and it looks pretty sharp as well, and it's pretty lightweight, so it doesn't add a lot of weight when it's empty. Then I've got some bags that hold other bits of tripods down there, and I have that I don't use too much anymore, actually really not at all. I have my homemade plate that I used for filming the back of the camera for quite a while. So I throw this on a tripod, and then I just had these screw nuts that would go into a camera and another camera to film the back of it. And that worked well for a while, but there was a little bit of flex in this, and I've upgraded to a couple different things that I'll show you in a minute to do that a little bit better. Now, this is the Pro 9000 Mark II Canon printer. It's gigantic, but it does print nice prints. But one of the reasons I'm doing this whole studio tour is, and I mentioned this in other videos, I'm not going to be in this space too much longer, and I'm going to be getting rid of a lot of different things that I don't want to move with, and this will be one of them. Most because I print at Adorama Picks, and the amount of times that I need to print something at home is just so rare that it's not worth it to keep something so big around. And it's also one of those deals where I feel like every time you do go to print, you realize that one of those ink cartridges is out of some ink, and so then you have to go find your spare, and hopefully you have spares, so it's kind of a pain. I got some boxes of Legos from Google Project Fi that sent those, and I have juggling balls. I can juggle. Down below that is where it starts to get pretty messy, but I try to claim that I have some organization skills. First off, this is just the box for the 12 to 35. All of this is being filmed on the GH4 right now with the 12 to 35 f2.8 lens that I've been very happy with. I picked up with that recent price drop that I'm not sure is going to stick around, but I really like that lens, and this box hasn't gone down to the basement box archive yet. That's what we'll call it. I mentioned that that computer, the iMac, had 32 gigabytes of RAM. I did not buy all of those RAM direct from Apple. That's a bad idea because they will gouge you. I bought it from somebody else, Otherworld Computing, for a much cheaper price. And the latest iMacs, it's very easy to do that upgrade yourself. So I bought it with, I think, 8 gigs and upgraded to 13. Most of what's in here is kind of travel adapter related. So I've got little travel adapters for all of the travels with the McKays in different places to keep gear all charged up. And some other power cords. We don't need to really dig in here. But one of the things that's in here that's kind of fun are these guys. I talked about this in a light painting video years ago. These are these little battery packs that are attached to blue and green white light wires. It runs off 2 AA batteries. They're great. The kids have used them for Halloween costumes. I've used them for light painting. So they are fun and pretty handy. The Myops, that little smartphone controllable camera trigger for high-speed photography. It's pretty handy. After I made my videos about it though, I don't think I've used it again, but that's something that's there for you. We've got the 2 Comlight boxes sitting in here too, so apparently these haven't gone down to the box archive yet as well. One for EF to micro four thirds, and I've had very poor luck using this. It's actually sitting over there somewhere. We'll get to it in a second. And this one is for the EF to E-mount Sony, and that one works decently with some lenses. I've got a separate video about that if you want to see. This is the box for the Z camera E1. We'll see that over there in a minute. And I think that's pretty much all that I need to talk about in this box. There's a set of old spare headphones. Otherwise, it's good. Here's the spotting scope that has nothing to do with photography really, but that is the reason why I bought that very nice tripod, because I wanted my scope to be very stable. It's a nice Kawa, and I've been curious to try what they call it, digiscoping, the ability to put your phone up to your scope with this attachments. I did it recently in Miami because I'd brought this along for the after Miami trip to the Everglades for bird spotting. But I only held it up to the eyepiece, so it didn't work so well, but they do make some things. It's a 20 to 60x zoom scope that is very high quality, so you can get some good shots out of it, but I need that attachment. I have XLR extension cord and a Shure SM93 mic that we used for a long time for the live show, and also sometimes out in the field. But having wired, even with extension cords, just really slows you down a lot of the time. So once we got the Sennheisers, we've really stopped using that. This is a piece, there's some of these pieces, they're spread around a little bit, to the Capture Beyond Limits Nebo motion slider. Which I really like the idea of using it, but it's so rare that I have actually used it, which I'm kind of bummed about. But they've recently upgraded, and the wheel now has this nice grippy material to it, so it's even better than it was before. And I've been happy with it, but I'd like to see myself use it a little bit more often. I don't not use it enough to get rid of it, but a pair of binoculars are sitting in here. So in this box, we've got a few more pieces to the Nebo motion slider. I'll just move them over here. We've got this. I think I put this on a gift guide at some point. When I travel, I really like keeping things organized in here. You might think, Toby, you actually keep things organized? Because this is despised otherwise. But when traveling, it's critical to me and very important to me to stay very organized so that I don't spend a lot of time looking for stuff. And although it might seem like this is pretty disorganized, I usually can find what I'm looking for fairly quickly. Would I like to be more organized? Absolutely. We got a couple more keyboard skins that they sent over here. I should give these away. Most of them are they're all for MacBooks. We've got one for Photoshop. We've got one for Lightroom. So at some point soon, I'll give those away. Also in here is the Spider holster hand strap. This is really nice. It is absolutely the most comfortable hand strap to go with a DSLR. I think they're coming out with a better version for mirrorless soon, and since the Sony is what I'm holding in my hands most of the time this day, this isn't currently attached to anything, but it is extremely comfortable. I really like it. We've got an additional box. You saw inside the blue fold-up thing, trigger trap stuff, but I got an additional box of some more trigger trap things. Trigger trap is one of those accessories where I do find myself continuing to use again and again and again. The Star Trail mode is very nice. Rocket blower brush, this is really, or rocket blower, this is really important to have around when I'm shooting with a Sony because it's just an easy way to get some of that dirt and grime off there. A box for a flash that I don't have anymore. Advantic, they just sent it to me. I didn't want to review it because it didn't seem very good, but I passed it on to somebody else who could make use of it. I've got another Shure microphone in there. We'll put that down there. I've got a headlamp that I use fairly often, and I really like this that has a red mode, so when I'm out shooting stars, I will use that mode often so I can continue to see what I'm doing, but it won't ruin my night vision as I'm trying to focus on stars and some other things like that. This is the Canon GPS unit that works in 5D Mark III and the 7D Mark II and some other cameras as well, and the newer Rebels too, and it will automatically write latitude and longitude data into the file, which is handy, but again, I'm mostly shooting with a Sony these days, so I don't find it on my camera very often. There's some other bits in here, including a suction cup tripod mount, or suction cup mount for inside or outside windshields. I wouldn't put it outside, only inside. They make double mounts too. I've been really impressed. It works really well. A cold shoe along with a hot shoe mount for lights or whatever else you want to throw up in there. And then I think most of the rest of this stuff, you might have seen over on the iMac table sitting the Zoom H4n. This is the little wind muff for that. I don't use that mic a whole lot anymore now that I have the Sennheisers, but there are times still where it is the easiest way to go about. And I have in here too, I have the Lume Cube, which you saw in our gift guide. I still really like this. It puts out a lot of bright light. I mostly have been using it as a flashlight, but it can also be used, as I said, for camera and videography. I've got two of these intervalometers, one for 5D Mark III, one for your Rebel series, and I don't use these a ton because the trigger trap does just as nice a job, but there are times where I want to still be using my phone for something else, and bringing these along can be handy. I think that's all we can talk about right here. Now we can come down below and... All right, so this is my very organized bag section. I've got the nice Ona Brixton in here when I want to use that for going out. I still love this bag, and if I want to look stylish and have a useful bag with me, that's the bag I take. I've got this slightly older Think Tank backpack that I don't use. This is the Airport Antidote V2. I don't use this a whole lot anymore because I have other bags in this size range that I like better, but it's still a really nice bag. And then under it is a few backpacks and tripod and Black Rapid, but I'll pull out real quick the Spider holster and just give them a shout out again, because again, if you want to carry a camera for a long period of time for shooting an event or something like that, I really do like the Spider holster setup. And so that's all of that there. But then in this box in front of it, well, sitting on top is my teleprompter. Now I do use a teleprompter for some of my videos. The iPad mini sits right here, and I use Prompt Smart, which is an app that is pretty slick. It's $10, and it automatically scrolls as it listens to your voice. And most of the time it works really well. I bet we can find some outtakes for times that it doesn't. And stability for, shit, can't really read it, so I was trying to guess what it said. Happens from time to time, but overall it's good. Using the teleprompter allows me to keep some of the videos, not ones like this, very tight, very organized, and make sure I'm hitting the exact points that I want. Now that you know that, you probably can go back and watch a few videos and say, oh, he is reading off a teleprompter. But otherwise, I think most people can't tell. This is where GoPro bits go to die. I have an immense amount of different cases for GoPros in this bag. I currently own a GoPro Hero 3 black and a 4 black. I should just get rid of the 3, but nobody's really going to want it since it spent a few days underwater, and ever since then it hasn't been as happy. But also in here is things like a GoPro chest harness and a GoPro head mount, and some more cases, and then a bunch of just extra power cords that I don't really use a whole lot. And, oh, another spider holster hand strap. I should give one of those away too. Thumbs up if you want to actually have me get off my butt and give some of this stuff away. And also the Gary Fong puffer. Why do I have this? I think at some point I bought it to make sure, to prove to people that it really doesn't make a difference. Then I never got rid of it and never used it again, and it's just been moved around from box to box to box to box. So it's not something that I think anybody should buy. Is this stuff in the shot here, Riley? Okay. So this is a new piece of gear that was sent to me by Benro recently, and it is this whole kind of Benro Go system. And I'm really intrigued by the idea, as I'm thinking about traveling lighter, traveling more, of having more of a workspace that will work for me and what I'm doing. So this has got a laptop mount on top of this nice carbon fiber tripod, and next to that is this whole other arm that you can then put a camera on top as well. I've just started playing with it. I'll be honest, when it arrived, trying to figure out which direction I wanted to lean or to attach everything was really complicated, even after watching their video. But I think I've got it down now, and I'm pretty happy with this setup. Now I just need to go out and actually use it. It also looks like it will be nice for doing more of the filming of the back of the camera, which I'm excited about, because you saw that I used to have that piece of wood that I used, and then I moved up to this Vanguard multi-mount, which this part goes on a tripod, and then you have these parts here that you can put a camera on. I hate this thing. This material here is so slick that it is very difficult to get these cranked down enough that the camera isn't sliding around to left or right while you're trying to do that. I've never been able to get it to where I'm happy with it, and I hope to get rid of it very soon because it just hasn't worked that well for me, and it's been frustrating. I think that's all in this area. We'll move over to the second part of the shelf system now. All right, so this is where it might get a little bit more exciting. This is what I consider my camera and lens shelf. I don't own, actually I own everything on here except for the Sigma 150 to 600 with a teleconverter right now. That's on loan to me from Sigma, and it is also what Becky just won from that Safari giveaway. So I'm gonna move that to the side so because it's kind of big and out of the way. But now all the rest of the stuff is mostly lenses and cameras. I'll start with this ancient EOS 1N. I never actually shot with this. I rescued this from a friend's throwaway pile because I thought it would be fun to have around as decoration and or to use as a prop in some videos. Never have, and so it's just sat here. It's gigantic. It takes gigantic batteries, and it uses those weird old cards, so it's not something that I'm going to be shooting with anytime soon, but it is still that Canon EF mount. I've got what was my first serious lens I ever bought, the Sigma 18-50 f2.8, and it's actually taped so that it doesn't move right now. We used to use this on the GH4 with a Metabones adapter for shooting wider in this room, and it's still a decent lens, and that constant f2.8 is quite nice. I've got a 50 f1.4 sitting back there that I probably should just get rid of. And then, actually I think this lens, this Tamron was on the EOS when I picked it up. It is the Tamron 28-80. It is a pretty crappy lens, but for some reason, I've kept it around. I have hard trouble giving away things like that. There's a bunch of lens hoods here, lots of different lens hoods. That's not very exciting. Let's put those to the side. I've got the newest 50-1.8 STM, so that's around. I've got an Olympus 25mm f1.8 that I use on the GH4 from time to time. Put that right there. I've got the Nikon 40mm f2.8 lens, the micro or macro, as most people call it, which is quite a nice lens. I have the Canon 10-18 EFS lens, and currently it's on that Comlight adapter, the EF to micro 4/3, which I don't like very much, but that's just what I have sticking on there. The variable ND filter from Genus Tech, I don't use it a ton. You very quickly get that big dreaded X in the sky. So if I'm shooting with the sky in the shot, I don't like using that. So I don't think I ever did a full review of it as well, but for shots that aren't in the sky, it's pretty handy to have, and it works well. This is that little Syrup Mini Genie that does camera rotation for time-lapse and or video. And it's kind of like the slightly more fancy and better version of this MPT-10 that was in the gift guide as well. And I'm pretty happy with that too. Trying to figure out where to put things so that they're out of the way. My 5D Mark III with the 70-200 f2.8 lens, which is quite nice. And I've got a couple more filters back there as well. Here's my Sony a7R Mark II with the cheap 28-70 kit lens on there, but it's a nice walk-around combination that works good for me most of the time. T6S with the 24mm f2.8 lens on there is a nice little lens. And if you watch the travel logs from the fall trip last year, that was the primary camera I shot most of my scenic pictures with on that trip. I had that little box I mentioned. This is that Z camera, E1, I don't remember the exact name. They sent me this. I have not reviewed it, which should tell you my general feelings about it. It's a really interesting idea. It's kind of a GoPro-sized camera with a micro four thirds sensor in there, but its interface and its low light performance are not very impressive. So tripod mount thing for that. I've got some audio cables back here. I've got the camera. This is one of those things where I feel like I should use it more often than I do, but it's the little QV1 camera viewfinder. It really is nice when you're shooting outside in bright sunlight to have this attached to any camera for video work, but I haven't used it much. This is the Metabones EF to micro four thirds mount, and I don't use this a ton now that I have that 12-35 on the GH4. That pretty much lives there. Extension tubes from that video I did about macro photography options. I still use these fairly often. They are a great cheap way, they're about 75 bucks, to get a lot closer with magnification if you've got a decent lens to use them with. Related to that is that Laowa, it's the Venus Optics 2X Ultra Macro that I reviewed. I probably actually use this more now than I do these extension tubes when I'm shooting with a Canon because you can get even closer and it's a little bit easier to work with. Yeah, I have good things to say about that. I think I reviewed it. Yep. When I'm not using the Sennheisers, I'm probably using this Shure VP83F, which I really like because it has a micro SD card slot on it that allows me to record remotely, or I can record directly into the camera. For the New Zealand vlogs, this was the mic that was on top of the camera most of the time, and I'm pretty happy with the audio quality, especially with this little dead kitten muff thing. It blocks the sound well. This from the Iceland vlogs is the little, what do you call it? It's the one that goes into your cell phone. And I was really happy with the audio quality. It worked really well with the LG G4. It doesn't work as well with the LG V10. The LG V10 in video mode tries to be helpful with audio, and as a result, you get some weird levels with this. So I haven't used it a whole lot with that phone. 70-300, I actually posted this for sale in my local group because I just don't use it often enough. I would most of the time just shoot with the 70-200, and that quality is so good you can crop in a little bit for that extra 300. But it's a nice lens and it's a good value overall. And the Sigma 50 f1.4 art, so that's why it's a little funny that I have two other 50s, but those are much more travel friendly. This is a lovely lens though. It's very sharp and I love using it. We've got some more bits from Spider Holster up above, a box of flash stuff from Photorec that I haven't talked about anytime soon, but is excellent, especially for Sony. And then I've got gray cards and a color checker from X-Rite that work quite nicely, but truthfully, I really just use the gray cards and the white card to set white balance from time to time. I don't use the color checkers very often, but I'd like to. And then comment if you remember this Transformer's name. He sits up here. I found him in a box at my mother's house, and I couldn't let her get rid of him when she was moving. So he's with me now. Down below all of that stuff is more of these wire baskets that have, this has more bits from the motion slider. And they have also added a flywheel, so if you don't want to do a motorized slider with that and want to have smooth movements, you can put this attachment on as well, and it does work nice. This is the Mi Photo 360 Plus that grabs your phone. I love these. They work really, really well. I have a spare. I need to give it away, so like the video and I'll give some of that stuff away. I have a Yongnuo 468-2 speed light that I've been happy with. It works. And let's see, a neutral density filter for when I'm outside shooting with the 12 to 35 and a circular polarizer also for that. You know, it's so nice working with Micro Four Thirds in some situations because everything is so much smaller and so easily portable. The cleaning kit from the video where I talked about how to clean stuff. And at some point I bought the lav mic from Neewer. And I don't remember why, but the quality isn't very good, so I've never talked about it. And this when I sometimes shoot side-by-side samples of stuff, this is the D3D1. I don't know who makes it, but you know, it's like 16 bucks on Amazon and allows me to put two cameras very close to each other and on a tripod as well. That's pretty much all that's interesting to talk about that's in this box. Oh wait, there's another flash. Oh, this is the Photix Mitros Plus flash that should actually be up there in that organized box. And this is what works with a Sony. This is a pro level flash and I've been very happy with it. Haven't used it a ton, so haven't spent a lot of time talking about it on the channel. This box is a little bit more disorganized, I think. Maybe you felt like the other ones were more organized. This is another Gary Fong thing that, why do I still have it? I don't know. You put it on top of your flash. Some of you love this. You can argue with me that it makes a big difference. Anytime I talk about it and I'm dismissive of it, I get a lot of comments, but it doesn't work for me. A-clamps, those are quite handy at times for clamping up backdrops, things like that. And that's just junk, not worth talking about. This is the Yongnuo transmitter that is a clone of the Canon for controlling their 600 or the Canon 600 RTs, which I have the Yongnuo 600 sitting right there. So that's very nice to be able to do that wirelessly. And it works quite well, and of course it's much cheaper than Canon. Peak Design slide light strap, which should technically be down there in that pile of stuff. I like this. It's good. That's the strap I use most of the time these days. And one of these tiny little LED panels that you can buy for about $25. This worked well for us for a couple of years, and then we had a little bit of battery issue. I should probably just throw it away, but there's some corrosion in there. The other thing that I think is worth talking about in here that is fun, because somebody was asking about this just the other day, and that's bramping. That's the method by which you can do longer time lapses at sunrise or sunset by controlling your exposure and gradually ramping it, or bulb ramping. That's what bramping stands for. It looks like a little bomb. It's called the Little Bramper. This guy made them, and he doesn't make them anymore, and I haven't used it a ton. Trigger Trap has a bramping mode in it. The last time I used it, I wasn't very impressed with it. It didn't seem to do a very smooth job of transitioning. I would like to do that more. It's a lot of fun, but it takes time to really get out there, set up in a nice place, and then make sure you got that transition going well. I think down there is just office supplies, so that's really not worth talking about. Oh, back here, I asked for Christmas from Santa, my mom, Alexa, and so I have Alexa, and I can do things like, Alexa, turn off studio lights.
Okay.
Alexa, turn on studio lights. Nice. Okay. Now we have one more light that we're going to show you in just a second. But truthfully, I just set that up earlier today before this video. Before this period of time, I have a little remote clicker that lets me turn on the studio lights, the ones that are the ProPhoto and the rim light back there. So let's talk about this last light, and then I think we're going to wrap this extra long tour of my very messy office up. All right, before we talk about this new piece of gear, this light that came in that I've mentioned a couple times, just wanted to say that with my new iMac, newish, I got the Magic Mouse 2 and the wireless keyboard. The wireless keyboard's fine. This Magic Mouse, I think, is an utterly piece of garbage. I hate how it feels in the hand. I don't like anything about it, so I just wanted to say that. This is an LED light from Gear, and I would love to figure out how I can use this in place of the CFL lights that I've been using. It can get quite bright, but probably not quite as bright as those lights in there, but it is so much more portable. It can run off AC power as it is now, or battery backup. It's got a nice little grip back here to quickly angle it, and it's got this diffuser plate. I think I've been very happy with it. I've been running it now actually just as an office light for a while, just to see if there was any burn-in or any issues with that, and I haven't noticed any. So as I look at lightening and streamlining the stuff that I use to make videos, especially thinking about traveling some, this is a really appealing setup. So overall, that was a tour of this messy place. There was a couple things I didn't show you, but they weren't very exciting. I'd love to hear comments from you, what you think. Could you work in an office that's messy? I mean, most of the time it's fairly organized. What piece of gear was most interesting to you? What would you like to get your hands on? What would you like to hear more about? You can leave those comments right down below. And as always, if you're not a subscriber, go ahead and take a moment to hit that subscribe button, and a quick thumbs up is always appreciated as well. Links to gear that I talked about that's worth linking will be down below, along with mentions of any time I said there was a video I produced about that piece of gear in more detail. I will put that link down below as well. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.